Hey, what's up, my fellow moms and dads, and welcome to a very special episode of the Sean Donohue. Jordan and I are here with my buddy Chris Smith, and he's going to tell you an amazing story. You're going to want to hear this. I met Chris about 2 years ago. We were at a playground together. Him with his daughter, who was 5 at the time. My daughter was 5 at the time. We're just doing dad stuff. We started chit chatting about sports, the Niners, and dad life, and we became friends. And now 2 years later, he's one of my best buddies. He's sitting here in my home office on the recording studio. He's going to tell you his life story. Jordan, I'm pumped, dude. Are you pumped?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, for us guys know it's hard to get a good guy friend, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
it is.
we're silent, we just kind of go with the flow. We do the stuff with our kids, make sure our wife's happy, but we don't ever really
It's
get
hard.
like deep with each other. And so like you ask yourself
So
as a 30 or
true.
40-year-old, who's your best guy friend? You probably think, man, I don't have one. I'm friends with a lot of people because we rarely go deep with each other. So I think it's pretty cool that you were able to build that relationship at a later
Thank
stage in
you.
life. And now, Chris is super cool enough to come and chat with us about it. So thank you,
That
Chris.
was really nice that you shared that because, yeah, Chris and I have actually talked about that, how much we enjoy our friendship. We're close. We've only known each other for a couple of years, but we need to have a whole episode on that. It's the challenges of adult friendships, especially for us men, super hard. So Jordan, Chris had been telling me a little bit of his life story here and there. And I was like, man, I just want to hear the full version. So we invited him and his daughter over, and the girls were in the spa, and he just told me his life story, like the hour and a half version. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is the most intense life story I've ever heard in my life. And I just asked him questions. How has it affected your parenting, you as a man? And then now here he is on the podcast, and we get to hear this story, then ask him questions about his life. All right. So Chris, how's it going, man?
It's going good. Little nervous, but happy to be here.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you all types of juicy questions. So I want you to be comfortable with sharing only what you want to share, like your personal story. And we can also edit out things after this episode. So don't freak out if you're like, oh, I don't want my daughter's name said or something like that. Or I don't want my where I work, being known. So tell us some basics about yourself, where you work, hobbies you have. And I'm trying to figure out if you're wondering what he looks like. There's a famous actor who's on the Walking Dead, is also the star of The Punisher. He's a famous podcaster. I should know his name. Oh gosh, I'll Google his name. And he looks very similar to this actor and a few other Hollywood stars I'm trying to figure out. So Chris, tell us about yourself.
Okay. Sure. I mean, first and foremost, I'm a dad. My daughter is my world. 49 years old. And, I want to, Sean being outgoing is really the reason why we were able to become friends. I'm pretty shy, pretty introverted, and it takes an extrovert to bring it out of me. So I'm grateful for that, and grateful that we were able to be friends because we do a lot of cool stuff together.
Yeah, we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do, man. We've
I
had
mean,
some
honestly,
really
that's the answer most guys would get. Introvert, kind of just do our own thing. And then you got some wacky weirdo like Sean Donohue, like, hey, dude, what's going on? What's your name? Is your daughter here? And start prying. And then you're like, this guy's all of my business. And then you're like, oh, this guy's actually kind of cool.
all right, man. So tell us, start from the beginning. What are some earliest memories you had from your childhood, and just jump into the juicy stuff right off the back.
Okay. And being that this is a trauma type topic, I'm going to obviously hit on those topics.
Please do.
Because there's a lot of joy and happiness throughout my life as well, but that's not what we're doing here.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
The first thing that I didn't know it at the time, but I've learned as an adult that just parents being divorced is very traumatic for the children.
Okay.
So I was 4 years old when my parents divorced, and kind of my first significant memory was my dad sitting on the front porch and crying. And I knew something was really wrong, but I didn't know what it was. But it turns out they were separating, and my dad was gone. And on the occasional weekends, I'd get to spend time with them,
Okay.
And then at age 5, we were going on my brother and I, when I say we we're going to go camping with my dad.
Okay, you're 5 and your brother is like
He's 6.
6.
Yeah,
okay.
he's 6.
Oh my gosh, so young.
So we were going to go camping. That was the thing. And as it turns out, my dad had somehow embezzled money from the company that he was working for,
Okay.
like a cash.
Living in the Sacramento region.
No, it was Redwood City.
Okay, Redwood City, Bay Area.
Yep.
San Francisco Bay Area.
And I forgot to mention, he was all spun out on cocaine at this time.
All right.
And
did you know he was doing drugs when you were a little kid?
no,
Okay.
no, he told me later on.
Okay.
But yeah, he was all messed up on cocaine and decided to steal money, buy an RV, and basically kidnap my brother and I. Drove up to Canada, bought a piece of property in the woods. And I mean in the woods. Like he was...
Premeditated kidnapping.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I remember he told us, so you guys are coming with me. You're never going to see your mom again.
Jeez.
And my brother started crying. I was so uncomfortable. Like I kind of smirked and like I just didn't know how to behave.
Okay.
But he kind of turned it into, you're happy. You're happy I'm taking you and stuff. And I'm like,
oh yeah. It's like this form of forcing you to manipulate you to, this is going to be good. And you're just a young kid.
And acting like I was on terms with it or whatever, you know? So anyways, to just put it in perspective, he was with a chainsaw, cutting down trees, cutting the branches off, skinning the logs, tying them to horses.
Where did he take you? You didn't know. Do you know where he took you?
Yeah, I believe it was called either Willow River or Willow Creek in Canada. We're in Canada.
British Columbia, probably.
British Columbia, yes. Yeah, we were on that side.
So did he buy the land, or is it just out in the middle of nowhere?
No, I believe he bought the land, yeah. And he got a job when we were there. So he was building a log cabin, starting with cutting down trees.
What were you doing during the day? Did you go to school? Did you just play with your brother? You didn't have a cell phone, video games?
No, we had bikes, and we were just cruising around through the woods.
Did you know you got kidnapped?
Say that again?
Did you know you got kidnapped?
No, you don't know that at that age. This is your dad. This is your dad. No one would think that would be kidnapping.
Yeah, we knew it wasn't right, but I was with my dad. He was a little mean and wasn't comfortable to be around, but anyways.
Some people do not take divorces well, but this is the next level. Yeah. Okay, so what happened next?
So anyways, you would ask, how did you get found if you were out in the woods like that?
It had to be on the news everywhere, right? Kids, two boys kidnapped, maybe?
It wasn't, because this was in 1979 or 78, whatever. Yeah, 79. And it really wasn't established as a full kidnapping. It's like, well, they're with their dad.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I mean, today it would be a manhunt, kidnapping, kind of a thing. But back then it was confusing.
Okay.
But anyways, my mom threatened to sue his mom in a significant enough way, saying, I know you know where they are. We're going to sue you for everything you have unless you tell us where my kids are.
Oh, wow.
So she ultimately told him. Okay. And the police came and got us one day and brought us back.
How old? How many months or years? How long?
I want to say we were only there for about 3 months or so. Something like that. It wasn't for too long.
So when you seen your dad get handcuffed and taken away, what were you thinking?
He got arrested at work.
Okay.
And then the police came to the door. They were actually renting a house at this time while building the cabin. And the police said, you boys come with me. I'm with your mom. Yeah. And then my stepmom started crying, and it was really bizarre. Oh, so their stepmom too. So she, nowadays she would be liable too for kidnapping. Sure. And it'd be a big crime. Back in then, the late 70s, it probably wasn't as big of a crime. Right. So then you move back to, where'd you move to then? Back to Redwood City. And just like pick up life like it was normal. You just tell your friends you went on a camping trip. Like what? How do you recover? It was weird because I never talked about it, but the other kids at school knew, you could tell, and it was real awkwardness at first, but I just ignored it. That's what I learned how to do with my emotions was ignore them.
yeah, did anyone ever process that with you or talk to you about that stuff?
No.
Gosh.
No.
Okay, so what happened next? The story's going to escalate very, very
It
quickly
is.
here, everybody. In
Yeah.
fact, Chris actually asked me numerous times, "Are you sure you want this? Are you sure you want it?" He even checked with Jordan. Jordan, are you ready for this? Like, all right.
I mean, that's a big starting point. You got kidnapped. You probably didn't know it at that time. You were just with your dad. Your parents getting divorced. Now you're going back to school with your brother, and you probably have that weight carried with you for a long time. I don't know if you still have it with you today, but I mean that could already have an impact.
Yeah, it does. So the next thing, and I'll just touch on this really quickly. My mom had moved in with who's her husband today, my stepdad, who had kids, and had two older siblings. One was an older brother who sexually molested me when I got back. So that is just another quick thing of trauma, obviously, in my life.
How many? One time or numerous?
I only remember it twice. I remember 2 times.
Did you tell anybody?
Not until I was older. I didn't even remember it until I was 23. It popped in my head. I'm like, holy crap, I was molested, and it was bizarre.
Now, tell them a little about what you do for work now.
Okay, so I am a drug and alcohol counselor, and I work at California State Prison, Sacramento, which is also known as New Folsom. And I work with inmates, trying to help them with addiction, criminal thinking.
Not just inmates, though. Yeah. You work with...
It's the worst of the worst. It's the highest level security prison that we have in California. There's 4 of them, and it's one of them. It's called a level 4 180.
So after you hear this very intense story, Jordan, we're going to ask him, why, after all that you've been through, how did you pick that career, right? I mean, we're like, of all the careers in the world, why that career, working with these men who are just, most of them, you told me, they're just so checked out. They've done so many crimes, murders, so many bad things. They don't even care anymore. They're like locked in these isolated cells most of their whole day, and they can only come out for your small group that he leads them in these group counseling sessions.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And they don't even, a lot of them don't even try. They're just checked out. Oh, can you imagine that?
I want to get to more on that, but I just want to make sure I'm getting the timeline right. So when you were kidnapped, you said 5 and 3?
I was 5 and my brother was
3.
6.
6. Okay, then you come back and your mother remarried and has this new husband at what age?
So they didn't actually get married for many years, but they lived together the whole time.
Away when you got back, he was already there?
Yes.
Okay. So she had already moved on while you were gone for 3 months.
Yes.
You come back.
He was already in the picture before we left.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice then.
So then at some point between middle school, and high school, you remember getting molested, but you don't remember that till college years, 23, when you were much more an adult.
Yeah. I was probably 7 or 8 years old when it happened.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So
do you remember what triggered that memory?
No, I really don't. Just popped in there.
Tell us about middle school, high school years.
Okay, so middle school, I was pretty angry. Didn't know how to deal with any emotions at all. Held everything in. And anger is the only emotion I really knew how to express, And I started using drugs, started drinking alcohol.
What age?
13.
13 years old. So that's that could be, I was 6th grade when I was 13. So 6th, 7th grade. What kind of drugs?
Just marijuana, nicotine, and alcohol. I shouldn't say just that for a 13,
Stealing
14-year-old.
From your parents or from the liquor stores?
So this is a strange story. My mom actually showed me her bag of marijuana, which she regrets tremendously now. Okay. But to me, that was just like a green flag. It's okay to do green light, not green.
Right.
Right. It's okay to do this. Totally. She had no idea it was going to affect me the way that it did.
You went hard. You went big, hardcore. And it was like, were you trying to be known as like a party boy? Were you partying with friends, your brother? Were you just raging, or were you like doing drugs by yourself in a dark room?
Well, that's where it ends up. It starts off as a party. It starts off a lot of people around, a lot of laughs, having a good time. But in the end, it's total depression, isolation, misery, and that's where it went for me.
So high school.
Do you feel like you hit rock bottom at a certain point, or did you just keep chugging along?
Wait for that part.
I kept chugging along. And there would be times through the years where I would clean up and settle down a little bit.
Yeah.
And that would just kind of feed my mind. Oh, you're okay. You can dabble and do this.
Yeah.
But then I'd dabble and start going off the rails again, you know.
Just to foreshadow the story, I hope I'm not. There was a point we're going to hear where he just says no to drugs and alcohol. We're still a ways away from that point. Yeah. And you've been sober now for how many years?
19 years.
19 years sober, and been a leader in AA and supportive of many other people. I don't know if the rules of talking about that, because it's like there's all these rules about AA. You can't like talk about it. It's very weird. I don't understand. Chris knows all that. But in the recovery community, I don't know if I broke the rules. Okay, so high school, big scene. I'm guessing I think you told me the drug escalated into more coke, powders, pills.
It did. It turned in, I'd say, LSD, mushrooms, and then into cocaine.
Okay.
And then ultimately into methamphetamine in my early 20s.
Oh, no.
Smoking it, injecting it?
So snorting it at first, the first few years, and then the last few years. This was late 90s when crystal meth was starting to become an epidemic.
Where'd you get the money to pay for this stuff as a high school kid?
So as a high school kid, we just got what we could get. It wasn't that prevalent with the heavy drugs.
Oh, that makes
just
sense.
when we could get it.
So it was after high school, you got a job.
Working, my friends are working, and we just, what we called partying, we just partied hard. I mean, with whatever was there. And
can I ask real quick what the relationship was like with your mom, your brother, and then the stepbrothers and stepdad?
Sure. So my brother partied with me. He did drugs too, and his friends were my friends. It was just a big group of us that drank and did drugs and partied and got crazy. And then with my mom, she was not an enabler at all. When I was in high school, I got kicked out of the house numerous times for drug use and dirty drug tests, you know.
Wow. Where'd you go?
That's
friends' houses?
I went to friends' houses for as long as I could, and then ultimately went back with like my tail between my legs, saying, I'll try if you let me live here, because I had nowhere to go, no money. And those were the times when I tried to stay off drugs and did a little bit better, you know. So I definitely give my mom credit for not taking crap from me and saying, I'm not putting up with this, you know. So, but then I got a job and took care of myself in my 20s, and my mom was distant, didn't know the extent of it until the end, you know.
Then correct me if I'm missing any gaps. Then a very integral character comes into your life. This woman, which we don't need to name her names. Yeah. Which, by the way, did your dad end up going to jail?
My dad?
Yeah.
They called it work furlough. He had to go to jail at night and stay the night, but they'd allowed him to go to work during the day.
Did he stay up in Canada, or did he move back?
No, he came back to California.
Oh, he did? Did you still see him?
Yes. It took a while before my mom allowed us to see him again.
Man, he got off easy.
Yeah, he got off really easy.
Oh, my gosh. Mm-hmm. Okay, so then fast forward. When did you meet your this girlfriend who became your wife?
Yeah, so I met Jessica. I won't use her last name, obviously, but I met Jessica through a friend. And the first time we met, she through that friend said, I want to get some methamphetamine. Can you get any? She said, my friend could probably get you some. And so they connected us, and I scored meth for her.
Okay. How old are you?
I think that I was 25, right around 25.
So 25. You've been an adult for a while, steady jobs. So you're both heavy meth users.
Off and on heavy meth user for me, yes.
Okay. So tell us what happened next.
So I had a girlfriend at the time. She had a boyfriend at the time. But we hit it off in a really intense way. We really liked each other and wanted to be with each other. Mm-hmm. But both were in these kind of codependent relationships, wouldn't break them off, even though we were cheating together. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to pretend like I have some high moral fiber at this time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just, I did what I wanted, and what made me feel good. And I truly never deliberately tried to hurt people, but just when it came down to it, I did what I wanted to do. It's very selfish lifestyle, you know? So fast forward 2 years, I'm 27. I broke up with a long-term girlfriend, and she happened to have broken up with her boyfriend.
Okay.
She's actually in rehab, and I'm just about 30 days sober at the time, trying to.
Yeah.
And in true mature and healthy fashion, will come on and live with me. Yeah.
Okay. We're sober now. Let's go to rehab.
Let me rescue you. You know, I'll be your everything, and kind of
common.
In my mind, I didn't realize that's what I was doing at the time. Okay. Obviously, I was just like, got this hot girl, or at least the girl that I think is really hot.
Yeah.
Come on, hang out with me. You know?
Okay.
So, I think we stayed sober for about 6 months.
Okay.
And then decided to smoke weed together. And that lasted for a few weeks before we went right back to methamphetamine. And that's one of the things that I learned is once you have the high that you want, no other substance is going to do that. Mm-hmm. And I sucked on bong hits trying to get that meth high that just wasn't going to happen. Uh-huh. So we quickly got back into the drug that we both chose to do. That was our drug of choice, if you will. And this is where it starts getting crazy. And looking back now, I should have seen, or I should have known how messed up this girl was, this young woman was. And I should have stepped back. But as I go through the story, you'll realize there's no way I would have guessed what was going on. You know what I mean? But I certainly saw signs of this is not okay, and I probably shouldn't be doing this, you know? So there's a bunch of ups and downs, but we decide to go off to Reno and elope and get married.
Oh, of course. That fixes all problems. Definitely.
It does.
Yes, it does. And having kids. That's number 2 problem solver. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And trauma healing. Yeah. You know, alcohol, marriage, having kids, definitely great ways to heal from trauma.
Yeah. So we'd run up there with a big bag of crystal meth and a couple of glass pipes and a bunch of lighters so we don't run out of fuel and we just get high and get crazy and get married. And you know, it's embarrassing to admit these things. And, you know, I've done a lot of work through it, and I'm a lot of years away from it now, but it's, you know, so.
But this isn't the only story out there like this. I mean, you know that now probably better than anybody, but there's people listening that have a relative or maybe themselves that have had a similar story or similar path.
Yeah, it's a good point. Point. Thank you. So this is the first sign. Hopefully I can explain it. On the way home from Reno, she's just like, pull over. I'm like, why? She's like, I'm going to get sick. I'm like, okay. Pull over on the side of the road, and she's like, vomits. We weren't drinking alcohol. Okay. We didn't eat anything. I knew something was off. Okay. This is not a normal, I'm sick. Like, this is like almost like a psychological or some kind of, I knew it was weird. So
pregnancy comes to mind for me.
Yeah. Thank God it wasn't that. You know, for me anyways, thank God it wasn't.
What it was not good, but either. But,
no.
All right. He's taking a drink of water.
Sip of water, sorry. So we get back, and I'll try to just hit the main points. There's hours of things we can talk about of craziness that happened from this point till when I stopped using drugs. But about 3 weeks after we got married, she came to me and said, I remember my father touching me when I was about 5 years old.
Okay.
And I'm like, this girl that I loved being with, thought she was beautiful, just married her, it just fed my ego that I had just, had this girl with me and we were partying. Everyone liked us. And I find out, okay, her father's a pedophile. Man, so much for the honeymoon stage after.
So she's driving home from her wedding. It's like, this is the second type of the time in the story. Someone's childhood trauma is just coming out at these times.
Yeah.
I mean, she just got married, so she's thinking, I'm so happy. This is the happiest I've been in my life, probably. It's probably what she's thinking. And then this memory comes back and she's vomiting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it was too much for her to hide from me. And as you hear more of this, there's a lot to hide. And I think because we were married now, she felt like maybe I can come out with this. Maybe he can help me get through this.
Yeah. She's probably never told anybody what were, these things, what she is about to tell you.
So she, through a 2-year period, approximately 2 years, it turned from, I remember my father touching me, to I remember pretending that I was asleep when my father would come in and have sex with me in elementary school and junior high, to where I remember fighting back as a teenager in high school and being deprived food and locked in rooms. Unless I did sexual things for him, then he would feed me and allow me to go out and give money. And then turned into, as an adult, my father still had power over me and could force me and convince me to have sexual relations with him. Turned into, I was a willing participant in a sexual relationship with my father. Turned into, I have been cheating on you the whole time we've been together with my father. Turned into, please help me. I want to get away from him and stay away from him. Please help me stay away. I did what I could to help with that. Turned into, hey, I called my dad today and told him that I wanted to see him.
Oh my gosh. On that same day? Or no, it was like...
No, just through this process.
Yeah, she would... Through this
so
process.
There's a lot to unpack here, but this is like how, crazy movies are made with, mass murders. So you hearing this initially after you get married, there had to have been this sense of rage where you're like, I need to protect my wife. I need to do something about this.
Yeah.
How did you go about that and not?
You wanted to kill him or something?
Well, it's a great question. I've got myself arrested several times. So, and this is a really relevant part of the story. So again, what I just described was over 2 years.
A long period of time, right.
And mix that in with massive crystal meth, massive sleep deprivation, barely eating, dehydration, and that trauma. And I cannot even put into words the downward spiral I took during that. I reached lower lows than I ever imagined I would in my life. But through that, some spiritual things happened to me, which I think contributed significantly to me changing my life. But it took a lot. So I don't remember exactly at what point this was, but I didn't know she was cheating on me at this point, but I knew her father was a pedophile rapist. And he's a very wealthy man. And in our desperation, we went to his house to try to blackmail him for money. And
which is his house is only about 20 minutes from our location right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, in your desperation, still happening. And just to go back to a part of the story that you alluded to when you were telling me that story, my backyard. When you say like he had this power over her, he would like call her and she would feel like this pull. Like she has to go, or she would want to go. Some type of, she would go, and you would like say, "Don't go," or you would try to follow her, stuff like that.
Well, I wouldn't know because she would hide it from me.
Oh my God!
You see what I mean? It was all a lie, and then it would come out after this happened. You need to help me, and I can tell you a story about one time when she went out, but I'll go back to that if we have time.
Okay.
So we went to confront him. and blackmail him and say, hey, we want money or we're going to the police.
Can you tell us what he did for a job?
He was a special ed teacher for kids. He was in the school district his whole life. Yeah, and I got a story about that as well.
That's going to be a very dark story. That'll be coming up in about 5-10 minutes. Oh, no. Okay.
So we go there.
Special ed teacher with children.
A psycho.
Disgusting. This is so dark. Please continue.
So we go there, and on my life, I was not aggressive. I was not, at this point, I was broken. I didn't want to hurt him. I didn't want to fight. I wanted to escape. We thought we were going to get maybe 80, 100 grand that he could give us. He's wealthy from an inheritance of his father, very wealthy. So we thought we could get a big chunk of cash and leave, and it almost seemed like it was working. We knock on the door, me and her. He answers the door, and I saw a very different side of this man. It's almost like he pretended to be this frail old man most of the time. He comes out. He knew I knew. He knew he was caught. Okay. He comes out, sits down on the patio. So what do you want, Jessica? You want money? And it weirded me out because I'd never seen him act this way. Mm-hmm. And she goes, you owe me money after what you've done. Like, what you've done to me is horrible. She starts screaming and pointing at him and stuff. And right then her sister comes running out of the house.
How old is she?
She is a few years younger than Jessica. So she was 24 or 23 at the time, in her 20s at the time.
Oh, my gosh. What is she, brown hair, blonde? Hair, white skin?
Both of them are brown-haired girls. Yeah.
Brown hair, okay, white skin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So her sister comes out, F you, get out of here, you starting, just going off. And I'm like, whoa, relax, calm down.
Were you aware was she having a relationship with her father as well?
Was she?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Both daughters.
Oh, yeah. So they start fighting. Jessica and her sister start fighting and just scuffling, and I kind of stepped in the middle and pulled her sister back, who I was cool with. I'd always been cool. But I broke them apart, pulled her back, held her back, and I'm holding her, and she's like, please don't hurt him. Please don't hurt him. I'm like, I'm not here to hurt anybody. I'm not. And she just kept saying, please don't hurt him. So then I realized that she was looking at something behind my back and saying, don't hurt him. So I turned around. He has Jessica by the hair, and he's just wrenching her by the hair, flips her, flings her to the ground. So I just kind of pushed Tina out of the way. Sorry, I just said her name. Maybe we'll edit that one. I don't want to do that. Charge at her dad. He runs out of the way, goes away from me. I pick up Jessica off the ground. Calm down. It's everybody calm down. And then again, my back is to her father and my wife's sister. And right at that point, Jessica just starts screaming, help her. And I turn around and believe it or not believe it, whatever it is, without a doubt, completely father-daughter embracing in an open mouth kiss.
Oh my gosh.
And Jessica was freaking out, help her. So I go running towards them, and they turn and run into the house, lock the door. Jessica's still screaming, help her. She calls 911. I end up smashing a window in, and we called the police. They called the police, and the police came.
Oh my
and obviously her sister didn't admit that she was making out with her dad, and didn't admit that she was raped by her dad. So it was Jessica against her sister. And what the cops saw was two idiots, high as a kite, stirring up trouble, destroying this guy's house. And they arrested us, which I don't blame them for.
Gosh.
Sorry, sip of water. But needless to say, I was very angry. I'm like, yeah, I have a drug problem. Yeah, I'm far from perfect, but I'm far from raping people and children. So who's the bad guy here, you know? And but we went about it all wrong. So this is when psychosis started to kick in for me. The trauma of that event. I was 28 years old. Sorry, got arrested. And I thought it wasn't real. I'm like, this isn't happening. I'm not being arrested. This isn't happening. But sure enough, I got thrown in a cell and ultimately passed out and then woke up the next day. I'm like, no, I'm in jail, you know? So I spent 47 days in jail. I never had any trouble with the law in my life. So that was pretty traumatic in and of itself, you know? So
I want to kind of see how this, you know, a very traumatic event, which some of us are relating to, whether it's this story or any story that people are thinking about right now, and try to get into like how this has affected us going forward.
Sure.
So you're at a point where like you have had so much go on to you. Have you hit rock bottom yet and seen a turn? Are we still going down
We're still going
the
down.
hole?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
So at what point, at what age did that turnaround happen?
30. I was 30 years old.
Okay. And at that point, did you end up getting divorced? Kind of sum up what happened with her and when you turned the corner, what happened?
Okay. I'll speed it up just to go. We didn't stop getting high when I got out of jail. I got arrested again, spent another couple months in jail, got out, continued getting high. And I was losing my mind. I was psychosis, unsure of what was real and what wasn't. Ultimately, I was living in a little crappy apartment with her. And this was after she had just said, I called my dad and told him I wanted to see him. And I'm just like,
oh my gosh.
After all this, jail, I lost it. And she took off and in the car and went somewhere, and I thought she left, and I truly thought I was in hell. And I don't mean like this is hell. I mean like in another dimension, I had failed life on earth, and I'm in hell.
Jeez.
So the notion that I got, that I thought God was telling me, was burn the evidence that you were here and get out, run. So I lit a torch that I had and threw it on a pile of blankets.
And you were apartment. Where were you located?
West Sacramento.
Were you in your apartment?
An apartment. Yeah.
So you're in your apartment. You lit something on fire.
Yeah, and ran. And luckily, it didn't burn the whole place down. They, did a lot of damage, but
you lit a fire in your own apartment complex.
Yes, in my own apartment.
In your apartment,
and took off running in fear, and ultimately got myself arrested again. I thought the cops. People's faces were like twisting and their eyes were twitching. I thought they were demons. And they were cops, but I thought they were trying to kill me. So I was trying to get away. Ended up getting tasered a bunch of times and arrested again, obviously. So then I end up, my brother got me back to my mom's house, slept for 4 or 5 days, woke up, and my mom, this is rock bottom. And my mom's just like, do you realize what happened? And I just started bawling. I just lost it, just let it all out, just shame, humiliation, embarrassment, just let it all out. And she's just like, where's Jessica? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, let me call her mom. And that's when she called her mom and came back and told me Jessica got arrested for the attempted murder of her father, which she did.
Murder.
Huh?
Attempted
murder, yeah. And so about a week later, I was in a treatment facility. I never used drugs or alcohol since. She ended up getting sentenced to 9 years in prison.
How did she try to kill her dad?
She tried to shoot him. She was in a car. He was driving, pulled out a gun, get out of the car. You get out. He runs. She fires at him, and he jumped off the road into
public. This is out in public.
Yeah, I was on the way down towards Coloma, if you know where that was.
Coloma, California. Holy smokes! So she hunted her dad down in a car with a gun.
Yep.
And missed,
but he fell, and she thought she shot him. And then she drove off in his car, and then basically, I think, tried to kill herself, spun the wheel and flipped the car, but was completely fine, and then got arrested. And
Oh, okay. So now you're hitting rock bottom. So now you're like, that's when your sobriety date started.
yeah,
18, 19 years ago, you said?
yeah, July 12th, 2004.
And then we want to get to the part of how this has affected you as a man now in parenting and childhood and family life. But a couple more questions. I know Jordan has some too. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I real quick question I have, up to this point in your life, well, I guess we would fast forward, but have you been able to address each specific problem? Do you need to? Someone else who has gone through multiple traumatic events, do we need to address each problem, or can you move past it, but just like summing it up, so to speak?
For me, I can only speak for me, and I had to dive as deep into everything that I possibly could. How did this happen? Why did this happen? Why was this my reaction? How do I change my behavior? How is it affecting me in a negative way? And how do I take actions towards the corrections of those behaviors that absolutely devastated my life,
Right. Like, even if you just like break down Jordan's question into like,
Yes.
kidnapped by your own dad at age 5, got into heavy drug uses in middle school and high school, escalated into more extreme drug use after high school, falling in love with somebody who is in an affair like that, the violence, like, how do you recover from that? How do you heal and become the man you are today?
Because I think some people would just be like, oh, the reason why this person has made bad decision because they were affected when they were a child. And so you could basically sum it up in a bow and be like, well, I would have never done any of this if my dad didn't kidnap me. Sure. But the reality is, like, is that the truth, or are we also in charge of our own decisions going forward? Yes, we have something that impacts us, but we are still making these decisions and kind of snowballing, and maybe it is a chain reaction. Maybe that is the answer. Maybe we can go back and say, yep, that's why. But I'm just trying to think of anybody else who's throwing out excuses as to why they can't be a good parent or why their kids are acting up. Well, it's because their dad did this or their mom did this. Is that the truth, or is that an excuse?
To me, it's an excuse. Like, look at diving back into the past to acknowledge the reality of how I was affected. There's value in that. But once I turn that into, this is why I don't have to do this moving forward, that's when it's on me. You know what I mean? We could follow the trajectory of anyone's life, and we'd all nod our heads and say, yeah, I understand how that hurt you and affected you. But once we understand that, it's completely our 100% and total obligation to address it and take charge of our actions moving forward. It becomes on us. At 5 years old, it obviously wasn't on me. You know what I mean? But at 25, it certainly is. If I don't want to do anything about it, that's on me.
Hearing this from some person who's never been through something, Jordan, or hearing this from even somebody on, some stranger means one thing, but hearing that from somebody like Chris who's been through what he's been through, that's another. I have like a million questions. I'm going to jump in with one of them. Of all those traumatic experiences you went through with your dad, sexual abuse, just even the drug use is a form of trauma as well, to like what you went through with your ex. Was there one that was the most painful or the most challenging to like recover from, or is it really just focused on the drug use? Like, is there one topic that was the hardest?
It's funny because something that was the hardest, I didn't even address. My daughter's mom, Emily, and Anya as well, when we separated and I lost half of Emily's life due to divorce and custody, it was without a doubt the most painful thing I've ever gone through in my life, and that was just five years ago. I was completely sober. I have my life in order, or somewhat in order,
That is. I'm gonna just sit on that.
So
can I just sit on that response
just
for
so
a second?
we don't lose everybody. This was another marriage, and you have a daughter with this other marriage.
Correct. Yeah, I got married.
So we can slow that. Let's slow that down. So then you got sober. You were sober for a long time. You met another woman.
Yeah.
You guys were married. You had a lovely daughter. She's actually here at our house right now playing with our daughter. But of all that you've been through, of all the painful experiences, your answer to my question, what was the most painful, was that divorce and the 50-50 custody.
Yeah. Hands
That's
down.
powerful, Jordan, huh?
I mean, it really shows you the testament of what it means to be a dad or a parent in general, right? You have this unconditional love for another human being that you never knew you had before. Like, he was lost. He was a lost soul before. He didn't even know he was in a bad situation when he was in the bad situation. Yeah. He had to have something terrible happen to wake him up and him be like, holy, you know what is happening? Mm-hmm. And then, of course, all that was terrible. But now that he's, I don't know if awake is the right word, but aware of his actions and everything. And now Chris, something terrible happens again. And now he's in a situation where his loved one is now, he has to split 50-50.
Yeah. And Jordan, Chris is like an amazing dad. It's like very easy to see that. We went camping together last weekend. We spent a lot of time together. And it makes me wonder, how are you so amazing? How are you so not reactive? How is he so responsive?
How do you not let the history come back?
Right. We're going to ask questions like that because when people clicked on that podcast title, Parenting with Trauma, some people are like, oh, I just want to hear a good story. But a lot of people are like, yes, I need to learn. I need healing. I need to know. So to hear this, I've got so many questions. So what's on your mind when you hear me talk like this to you about you? We're talking about like you as like you're like not in the room right now, but like you're like literally 2 feet from my face right now, or maybe not 2. That's a little close. That'd be a little weird. Probably 4 feet, our faces. What are you thinking right now?
I don't know. I think I'm a little numb from everything I just shared, but I'm a little teary-eyed when you said that. Thinking of me as a good father, and again, I feel it again coming up. It's just so important to me that that's what I am and that I do my very best. None of us are perfect, but to spin it back to the topic of this is that I do know, because of what I've been through and the work that I've done, how much it affected me to not have a father present in my life.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm going to cry a little bit when I think of this, but when I brought a human being into this world, 100% commit to myself that no matter what mistakes I make, it isn't going to be because I'm not fully engaged in every single part of her life until I die. You know what I mean? And so far, she's only 7, but I feel like I've done that pretty good so far.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's amazing you have that feeling because, I was speaking about how like when you were in it, you were lost. From someone on the outside hearing the story, they're like, man, and your friends could probably see it, but while you're in it, you can't see it. Yeah. And now that you're out of it and you have that view, it's so special because unfortunately, maybe someone's listening right now and their spouse is still in it and they're trying to wake them up and they can't. How do you wake them up? How do you show them that what they're in is detrimental?
Jordan, that question was so good. I want to repeat it. Did you just ask him, Chris, what advice do you have? Because he's like a professional counselor here. When your spouse has been caught up in trauma and they're experiencing the pain and the symptoms of serious trauma, is this the question? And that's your spouse, and you see it,
right?
You see it,
and they don't see it.
They don't see it.
Your kids, correct?
How do you respond? How do you co-parent? How do you husband or wife with that person? What are your thoughts on that? What a question, my dog.
So that is a great question, and it's heavy, and I think it matters on how severe the trauma is and the actions behind it. Because if it's causing harm to the children and to the family, then it needs to be addressed in a way that we're not going to put up with this kind of behavior. Yeah. And if it's lighter and just a struggle, then obviously you're not going to be like pulling the children away and those type of things. So the severity of the situation is really relevant to what actions I think need to be taken or the best actions that could be taken in that situation for the hope of a good outcome.
I
if that
think
makes
I
sense.
think you'd agree with me when I say this, because I want to help answer that question too. Even though it wasn't for me, I'm jumping in here. It is called the Sean Donohue Show. Unfortunately, I don't think there's any magic words that somebody can say to invite somebody to do the work they need to do to heal their trauma. There's no magic words. You sometimes have to put sugar and spice on it. You can woo, you can make good deals, you can use harsh, things, but that person's got to be willing to do the work.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you agree?
I completely agree.
Now here's a
They have to
question
make
for
the
you.
decision to do the work themselves.
Okay, now here's a question for you. Okay. Okay. A year ago, we went camping together, us with some other friends, and I have a janky camping trailer. And so at normal times throughout this camping trip, your daughter is doing normal things that 6-year-old daughters do.
Mm-hmm.
She's playing with my daughter down by the water. She's maybe going into the trailer to play by themselves in the trailer. They're maybe going into a tent to play games together. Now, me as a dad who has not been through what you've been through, I look at this and I'm like, no big deal, right? They're playing by themselves in the trailer. I can't see them. Oh, well, we're camping. We're having a good time. No big deal. Based on what all the things that you've been through, does that trigger you? Is it hard for you? Do you live in fear? Do you parent in fear? Do you parent in trauma? Do you have to counsel yourself when normal childhood things happen with a 6-year-old girl? How do you talk to yourself? What do you think?
It's a really good question. And so I think it starts with me being honest with myself and being honest with Emily's mom of what we're going to allow our daughter to do and be around and what we're not, and we definitely have found a way to be on the same page with that. So things like with other kids and what you're describing, when I don't see any strange behaviors from friends or family and those kids to make me think that, hey, you might want to be careful. There might be something going on here. I don't really think too much about it, but I promise you I'm paying attention to everyone that my daughter spends time with. To where if I see signs and signals, she's not going to be alone with that family or kids.
Just to compliment you, you've never given off a vibe at all of being like an overly hyper vigilant or fearful parent. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you are. You either aren't or you're faking it. I just don't think you are. I think you've really nestled into that sweet spot of being, you're a single dad now, being aware, being present, but still being a normal, fun-loving dude.
Yeah. I think I'm glad you see that, and that's where I hope I am. That's how I feel like it is. I don't feel paranoid.
Now, when you do watch the 49ers on playoffs, San Francisco 49ers, and they are losing, you do act a little weird.
Yes.
But but who doesn't, though? So all you sports lovers out there, I'm glad you laughed at that joke. Jordan, you got a thought or question?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a weird thought, but after hearing your story and hearing about other people you work with who have stories maybe, somewhat similar to this and the murders you work with and all that, the bad stuff, I see why parents helicopter parent. I see why they want to make sure their kids stay safe and they want to control what their kids are doing because there are some effed up people out there. I mean, that is just wrong what happened to your ex-wife. Like, that is terrible. I would literally, I don't know if this is true because it's not, I would kill someone for my kids if that were to happen. So how you didn't do that with your, I don't understand that because there's a trigger that hits. So there's this balance that we've had on the show where we talk about our kids and our relationships. We have to let them fly. We got to teach them. But the reality is this world is a really dang scary place. Yeah. And I don't know how you're doing it right now with the daughter, knowing everything you know, but it sounds like what Sean is saying is you're doing a good job. So any other words of wisdom to people out there who are putting their kids and kind of sheltering them too much?
Oh, that's such a your questions are so good. I want to slow them down. Give us words to wisdom because there's a lot of scared parents out there, Chris. A lot of fearful moms. They're afraid their kids are going to get kidnapped, sexploitation. They're afraid they're going to get hurt at the playground. What are your
think about the big movie that's out right now about what is that, Tim Ballard and his daughter that was kidnapped in sex trafficking. I've heard it's incredible too. But this is a thing. Some of us live in a bubble, man, and this is happening around us, and we don't even realize it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, my thoughts are to be fully engaged in your children's life so that they know you are there. They respect and listen to what you say, and that you know them well enough to where if they're off, you're going to not ignore it for 5 years. They're going to say something has happened and I need to address this, And then we have to, for me, I need to know who my daughter's with and where they're going to be and those types of things until she's old enough to make those decisions for herself. I was given way too much free reign.
I was given that too. But has there ever been a situation? I know your kid's young right now, but has there ever been a situation where you feel uncomfortable and you have to say no, or you have to figure out a way to manage that yet? Like Sean was telling a story a couple podcasts ago about his daughters that want to go to a concert by themselves, and like for a lot of people that could be very uncomfortable. Like, I don't want you going out there by yourself.
Yeah. So I have no problem, and I think this may stem from the trauma and the reality of the world that I know where I work. There's psychos everywhere. You know what I mean?
That'd be a whole nother episode, right? Please continue. Yeah, you're working with psychopaths every day. That's going to skew your view of humanity in the world in some ways.
Yeah, that could be a whole nother podcast because I know some murderers really well. And to be honest, some of them I like very much.
Right,
I wouldn't put them alone with my daughter, but
right.
So that's a whole nother thing. But no, I have no problem saying no. But this is what I know that works for me. Since she was very young, I explain this is the reason why. I love you, and that's not safe or that's not good. And my big thing is a big statement I always say. I got to be your dad. I got to be your dad. And right now, it's my job to be your dad. And you may not like it, but no matter what happens ever, I'm going to be your dad.
We have a whole generation of parents who are afraid to be parents. They're afraid to be parents. They're afraid to be dads. They just want to accommodate their child, or they're afraid of their child. They're afraid they're going to get worse. And I love what you said there. I got 2 big questions for you before we go. And I know Jordan might have 1 or 2 too. It's a question I alluded to 15 minutes ago or whatever. Of all the freaking careers in the world, man. Of all the careers, dude. Come on, like, why don't you go be a park ranger somewhere? Or go have a more chill job. Like, why did you pick this career? Yeah. Working in such it's got to be a hopelessness environment. Yeah. Trauma-filled environment where you're working with men who have been literally traumatized many times over in their entire life. And now this is the symptoms partly of their own choices, but also their environment. Why that job, man?
I have a natural passion for this. I know there is a way out of addiction and trauma and abuse. There is a way out. Yeah. And I believe that with all of my heart.
Yes.
And that fire burns in me to try to accept the challenge of trying to get others to see that and take the initiative on their own to change their life, because I know it's possible.
Wow.
Well, you are. How many of us don't want to hear advice from someone who just talks the talk? We want to hear advice from people who walk the walk. Sure. And you have that story so that can relate. I mean, that's basically an example of like life not happening to you, but life happening for you. Like you're taking a terrible situation and using it for the greater good to help someone else down the road.
Yeah, thanks. Trying to, for sure.
My gosh. Okay. When you, what is the hardest part of parenting for you right now? Putting you on the spot here. It's last couple questions. Your daughter is extremely sweet. She's very cooperative. In fact, he's going to be the head coach of the Shooting Stars soccer team, which my daughter is going to be on. And then this year, we're also going to be playing basketball together. I'm definitely going to be an assistant coach or a head coach because I definitely can't sit on the sidelines during my game. So what about you? Is there anything that's hard about parenting, or is it just kind of all like after all that you've been through, it's like, you know what? It's not that hard. Like after all I've been through, I don't know what comes up.
So, I think that I have that natural nurturing personality that it's not difficult for me to be loving, kind, patient towards her. What's difficult for me is one day I was I was 42 when she was born. 42 years of doing whatever I want, and then this little thing is born, and it never ever stops. So it's like the way getting worn down of this. Oh, I just want to lay on the couch and be left alone.
Yeah.
Right.
So just the long-term fatigue is probably the most challenging. I need to recharge to get back into that space of being there for her in a patient, loving way.
Recharge. Yeah.
Dude, that's good, because anytime I need to recharge, I go to the fridge and grab myself a nice little brewski. So kudos to you who have been sober for so long, because man, that's got to be tough.
Yeah.
We're going to close our show in a minute with something we do, Chris, which is called Attitude of Gratitude. So in about a couple, 1 or 2 minutes, I'm going to ask you on the spot here, tell us, something you're really thankful for today. And if you could think of something that maybe, has to do with this really dark drama that you've told us here today.
Sure.
Because we didn't even really get into some of the other darker things that this man did, your old wife's dad, with working with kids, and we didn't get into that. And so that's not appropriate. I mean, it is appropriate. We could do it, but it's like, imagine the worst case scenario of really, really bad things, including his daughter. It's just dark stuff, right? There's no need to go into it.
No,
right?
I don't think it's relevant.
I don't think it's relevant either. So how, Jordan, do you have any last questions for Chris?
No, but I'm ready to rock my attitude of gratitude.
All right. What are you thankful for today? I'll go after Jordan, and you can close us up, Chris.
A lot of people ask questions. Why does God allow someone to do that to a child? Why does God allow this to happen or that to happen? Yeah. I don't know the reason. But what I do know is that there are people like you using a very terrible situation for good to try to help others. And I'm grateful for all those people out there that are using their stories and their memories to better help those who are in need today.
Thank you, Jordan. That was beautiful. Yes, you're a healer. You're literally a professional healer. And now you're a healer by even telling your story is going to help people to heal and hopefully do the hard work they need to do to heal from the childhood dramas. And it's like, we don't even need to do here's 5 things we learned from Chris's story.
Right.
There was so much wisdom in that story. I'm thankful to have you as a very, very close friend, because I don't want to just sit around and just talk about sports or camping or the weather or stupid stuff, but to be able to share life with a like-minded dad who loves his kids and loves people and wants to heal and bring hope to this world and be a hope dealer. Thank you so much, Chris, for coming on this show and for being real and vulnerable. It was an amazing story here today. You told us, man. Thank you for your honesty and your realness. Tell us something you're thankful for today.
Okay. So a lot, and to spin it into the topic that you wanted to, is that I'm grateful that I hit the bottom that I hit, because I had such a giant ego. If I didn't hit that hard of a rock bottom, I never would have changed my life. It took the complete and total bringing of God bringing me to my knees in desperation to actually make a change. And if that wouldn't have happened, who knows where I'd be right now? Not here.
Mm-hmm.
Not here.
Truth.
And where you are right now, you've got this beautiful, lovely 7-year-old girl playing with my 7-year-old upstairs, and your life is good. So thank you so much for coming here, Chris and Jordan. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.